Member at Large Albert Mills. At this time, I will call the roll for the committee members first. Councilwoman Latricia Beatty, Vice Chair. Councilwoman
Present.
Councilwoman Brigida Fields. Councilwoman Xanthia Oliver. Councilman Vincent White.
Present, Mr. Chair.
And Council President Ernest Congo. Are there any other council members online that need to be acknowledged?
I'm sorry, Council Chair, Committee Chair, this is Councilwoman Fields, President.
So noted, Councilwoman Fields. Thank you for joining us. As a friendly reminder, only members of the committee members should be making motions in seconds. We'll start this evening with an ordinance to authorize and approve 2 one-year extensions for contract 24019 PR Combined Food Service Program between the City of Wilmington and Whitson Food Services Bronx LLC. Sponsors Councilman Mills. We have Director Smith.
Good evening, and please forgive me. Actually, don't want my little one in the picture. Please forgive me. Pickup time, yes. Some of my other staff is going to join at some point as well, but yes, we are ready to finalize this portion of the nutrition program and move forward with preparing for the summer nutrition program.
My understanding is it's 2 one-year extensions, Director Smith?
Yes, sir. 2 one-year extensions. This is new. We're combining both of our summer feeding program and our year-long feeding program into one. Part of this adjustment was a byproduct of Winston, who is the vendor, buying out the other vendors that were in the area. So this is partially a byproduct of that combining these contracts. I don't know if there's any other questions.
None at this time, Director Smith. Are there any other council members online that have any questions?
Yes, Committee Chair, I have a question.
Yes, go ahead, Councilwoman, please.
Thank you. So, is this still, it's gonna be for the summer, but is it just more food for the summer and the after school, or is it just for the summer together? I'm sorry.
So this is going to combine. So previously we had, and I'm going to mess up the acronyms if I try to get down there, but SFFP, which is our summer food feeding program, and CSFP. I did not say that correctly, but that's the second one. These are now combined. So that's what so to answer your question there, it's not about really extending or expanding how much we're feeding. That's really going to be based on how many sites want to be fed. And then also we have our summer, we feed in the parks, and how many people are able to come to the parks. Those will have a direct impact on the number of people that's fed. But this is just to combine the 2 contracts. The previous contract that we had was bought out by this company, and so we didn't even get to execute that portion of the contract. So yeah, this is just to combine the 2 contracts: the summer feeding program and the fall feeding program.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Director Smith, will any of the summer locations change?
Hello, good evening, everyone. This is Melody. I can jump in for, if you don't mind, Councilman Mills, to help out since Director Smith is driving.
Yes. Thank you, Ms. Mellon.
If that's okay. Okay.
Yes.
So, no, none of the locations will change. We are looking to have all of the locations remain the same for the summer feeding program, including the parks. We have a new youth and families division manager. Her name is Shakesha Clark. I believe she's on as well. But we're currently working out where all of the locations will be and working with all of the summer camps to see if there's going to be any new summer camps added this year. So we are, hopeful that none of those things should change or have any sort of impact with the potential of the 2-year extensions. And these extensions will just allow us to continue to work with Whitson's without having to put it back out to bid again. However, if we see where, oh, okay, Whitson's is not really, doing a service or whatever, we could put it back out to bid, but it does help us to be able to have the continuous service, because without it, then it continuously has us to go back to asking Whitson's and then City Council, oh, can we do another extension? And then sometimes that can mean that the program, the nutrition program could be put on hold, and children waiting on food while we ask City Council for approval, as well as while we're waiting for Whitson's. And if we do this way, it locks them into the current contract where they can't increase the price either.
All right, thank you, Ms. Mellon.
You get a chance.
Yes, Councilwoman White has questions.
Hello, Deputy. Could I request at some time in the future a list of the nutritional value of these meals, including all ingredients thereof?
Absolutely, we can get that to you. We have to abide by the Department of Education's nutritional value. So there's it has to be, the way it's provided has to be given out in a certain way. So that's easily, we can give you our menu that has to be approved by the Department of Education as well. And it's the same menu that we give out to all of the sites, just in case the state comes and monitors us. They have to meet the requirements of that menu.
Thank you,
So we
Deputy.
can't, even though when we give it out, the site can't then change the menu.
Thank you, Deputy. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah. Thank you, Deputy. And you said Mrs. Clark as well is going to be hitting the program?
Yes, yep. Shakesha Clark is our new youth and families manager. And so she started on January, the day after MLK Day. So what was that, January 16th? So she is working through her 90 days, doing really well. We got some in our former nutrition program coordinator, Victoria Fuentes Cox, who's still with the city, has been providing a lot of training. So Shakesha is becoming well-versed in the food program.
Well, that's an excellent hire for the city. I'm very familiar with her and her work. Did a lot of great things in Chester, so looking forward to the wonderful ideas she brings to the city of Wilmington. Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Any other questions for council?
Yes. Hi, this is Councilman McCoy.
Okay, Councilman McCoy, please.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm sorry. I just wanted to be recognized, but I'm sorry I got on late. But I wanted to find out whether or not has Parks presented which parks will be receiving the lunch program.
Hi, Councilwoman McCoy. Excuse me. I'm also battling a little sore throat. So hello. So we did not yet. Shakesha and I would have had that information ready, but I have been out sick this week. I jumped on to make sure that I could answer, any questions. But my goal is she and I have supervision every single Wednesday, so I should be able to have all of that information out to City Council as well as the rest of the department by next week. It was my goal to have it today, but I wasn't expecting to be a little under the weather.
All right, thank
I
you.
can tell you Kosciuszko Park is on there.
Thank you. May I follow up?
Yes, Councilman.
All right, thank you. My follow-up is basically whether or not do we see that we're going to have, I think, a cut in the number of parks as we did last year, or do you think that we'll be able to supply lunches, I guess, a little bit closer to what we had previously?
We actually think that we'll be able to provide lunches to what we had previous. So one of the things that we've been doing is looking at the total budget, and we realized we had some significant amount of funds sitting in a project line from COVID. So when the nutrition program was able to produce a mass amount of numbers, we produced a significant amount of revenue. However, that revenue also sits restricted on what we can use it for based on Department of Education. On the positive side, what we found is that Department of Education has approved us to hire more nutrition monitors and a full-time office assistant, as long as City Council approves it in April. That now, with those additional nutrition monitors for the summertime and park site supervisors, we may be able to add a park or two because of these extra funds that we just don't want to sit in the line anymore.
Oh, that's really good to hear. I'm glad that you were able to find or identify some other funds.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, Deputy, and I appreciate the time. And this is a ordinance, so is there a motion to move this out of committee?
Mr. Chair, motion made.
Second.
Second.
The motion has been moved and seconded. It has been properly moved and seconded at this time. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carried. All right, thank you, Deputy.
Thank you, Councilman Mills. And if I may, if any of the council members have identified parks, please send them to me as we work it out, if that's okay.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Appreciate it. And next up, we have a presentation by Dr. Siemens, principal from Springer Middle School.
Stand?
It's your choice, sir.
Okay.
The amazing Springer Middle School.
Oh, come on now.
Yes.
It's too kind. Too kind. Councilman Mills, Bracy, thank you to you guys in the Education, Youth, and Family Services Committee for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak tonight and to inform you both about the referendum as well as things that we're doing at Springer, because we are extremely excited about the growth that we've already made so far in this year and the growth we continue to see make as we implement my long-term vision for the school. So as we kind of get in, the first slide you'll see is just a brief bio. You know, I think it's kind of important. I have had quite a trip down through education. You know, I started teaching at Ferris School for Boys in Newcastle County Detention Center. I taught there for 4 years as a health PE and special education teacher, and then I was principal at Terry Children's Center and Silver Lake Treatment Center. Both of those were day and residential programs for children with behavioral and mental health issues. Then I jumped over to Cecil County, although I'm from Wilmington. I'm from right off Kirkwood Highway in Marshallton, grew up next to Belvedere. And I've lived in North Wilmington for about 10 years now, but I was in Cecil County at Elkton Middle School, Title I. I was an assistant principal. I was there, which is Title I majority minority school. Then I went to Rising Sun High School as an assistant principal, and then back to Elkton, but at the high school as an assistant principal. And then I was principal at Perryville Middle School in Cecil County for 2 years before I was hired by Brandywine School District. And so now I'm thankful that I'm there. The next slide will show you just a table of contents on what we're doing. We're going to get in, I know I have limited time, but we were going to get into a connection before content question, talk a little bit about the BSD referendum, what we can do, what we're doing to support our students at Springer, and then how this committee and council can help. So the next slide was a connection before content question, and the question was, you know, if you could relive one day in your life over and over again for the rest of your life, what day would that be? And I planned on having you guys talk about that with one another. And the reason that I do these, and I do these at every meeting, and I do them when I'm meeting with hundreds of parents, I do them when I'm talking with kids, it's because people change their behavior based on the bonds that they have. And for our teachers to be able to, you know, really change behavior and trying to get buy-in, we really do need to understand our kids. And so I push my teachers to have this. I do them at every faculty meeting. And it's just a good way for teachers to get to learn kids and get them talking. So if I ever see you outside of here and you want to tell me what day you would live over and over again, I'd be more than happy to hear it. I actually did this with my bus driver. So I did a bus driver meeting. And I had the most profound answer with one of my bus drivers, and he said he would live the day over when he fell off his bike for the first time because his grandmother picked him up and helped him, and that was the first time that he actually felt love. And that was the most profound answer I have ever had. And I was like, man, I just picked my wedding day. Like, I didn't know we were going to get deep like that. So it really, it is something that is a really awesome strategy that you can do with kids, with people. It's great. But let's get right into the next one, into the BSD referendum. So the referendum already passed, which is awesome. But, there are two types of referendums that you can go for in the state of Delaware. And Delaware is like one of 3 states that that uses the referendum system to fund their schools. And when you go for, and I'll get into what a referendum is in a little bit, but there are 2 types of referendums. There's operational and there's capital. Operational is paying the teachers, paying the staff, keeping the lights on. Capital is we want to ask for more money because we want to build new schools or add additions. Brandywine School District elected to forego the capital part of the referendum and purely just stick with operational. And they said, we just want to raise taxes so that we can pay our teachers and keep the lights on without having to cut any positions. Because Brandywine prides themselves on low student to staff ratios. They pride themselves on services to kid and initiatives, and we'll get into that a little bit. If we go to the next slide. So if we were going to go capital, those were some of the capital things we would have gone for. We are getting a new Bush Childhood Center, which is going to be built on Shipley Road at the old Brandywine Country Club. And that is going to be an early childhood center, particularly for students that have severe disabilities. Now that is going to be paid, that's completely funded by the state and not paid for by taxpayer money. And the rest of the stuff was what the district proposed to the state that they wanted to do. The state denied it. And then so the district said, we're not going to put that bill onto the public. And so what we'll do is we'll just ask for an operational referendum, which is what we went into. If you could go to the next slide, please. Day-to-day costs, this is everything in day-to-day costs. I mean, if you look at there, we have 152 paras. There's 164 performances, which means that almost every school day, on average, there is some sort of performance or that is going on. 905 classrooms have to get cleaned daily. There are 13,000 laptops. If you see the buses there is 13,500 gallons of fuel used weekly to bus kids around. And so all of this stuff costs money. And with inflation, and we'll get into, if you get to the next slide, is very important. There's over 1,000 teachers within Brandywine School District. So if you go to the next slide for me, please. So this is a really good visualization to kind of understand how referendums work. So as you go down there, it's like a school district will ask for more money. So that first line there, you see that dotted line on that first one. So that, the last time that Brandywine School District went to a referendum was 2016. And you ask for basically more money than you need at that current year. And then that should take you to, you have a surplus. And then as that diagonal line goes up, that is expenditures and over time. And so as the time goes up and inflation goes up, you start to run out of money. And then when you hit that point where you get to a deficit, you need to ask for a referendum to ask for more money and say, okay, well, we need to ask to raise taxes to pay for the next X number of years. And so if you can go to the next slide for me, please. So there, Brandywine School District's last referendum was in 2016. They were able to stretch what was supposed to be a 4-year referendum into 8 years. And that was done in 2 parts. The first one was done into fiscal stewardship. Millions of dollars the district went for and applied for in grants to help subsidize cost, as well as ESSER funds, which was COVID relief money. And so they were able to stretch what was supposed to be a 3 to 4 year referendum into 8 years. Okay, so that's why we got to referendum, because we're at the point where there's not enough money. And this would have led to, if the referendum didn't pass, it would have led to massive cuts. Over 100 teachers would have had to be cut from, and staff members from the school district. You can go to the next slide for me, please. These are just some of the things that we do that pay for every day, and some of the awesome programs that get paid for by taxpayer dollars. It's not just teacher salaries, but all of these different things: AVID, athletics, dual enrollment, AP programs. All these different things are phenomenal programs that go directly to people in front of kids and put kids into programs to give them a comprehensive and diverse experience. Next slide, please. Continuum maintenance. Also, we're increasing our ability to, with regards to alternative education, attracting and retaining high quality teachers. We are going to continue to provide, on that last slide, there was a bunch of different curriculum things there, but you see gifted and talented, international baccalaureate, AVID, immersion, visual and performing arts. All of these things is what this referendum is going to pay for. You go to the next slide, please. If we didn't, this is a good graphic here. If we weren't able to pass the referendum, these were some of the cuts that you see, and this tells you what what makes up a total budget. So some people have the misconception that a school's got $3 million in basketball sitting in their in their PE closets, which isn't the case. This kind of shows you exactly school budgets, facilities budget, and how that's broken down. So that's where things would have had to get cut for, and that bottom red line is what the first year cuts would have had to been. So over $6.5 million would have had to been cut if the referendum wasn't passed. Go to the next slide for me, please. And so what you see here is the district is going 25 cents in the first year per, it's like every certain square footage in your house or of your property assessed value is 25 cents, and then 20 cents in the second year. That's what the raise will be. If you could go to the next slide for me, please. All right, and so we could have done different, they could have gone all together at once, but they tried to break it into two sections over 2 years versus doing it all in one to help people plan for the cost. So that is just an average there of what you'll see, different scenarios of what the average per month cost will go up in people's taxes. Okay, go to the next slide for me, please. This was just a slide that kind of shows you on average, because some people will see their taxes go up, some won't. There is going to be a reassessment that is taking place over this year and next year. Property values have not been reassessed in Newcastle County since I believe like 1987. So they are finally being reassessed. You go to the next slide for me, please. The reassessment. So the reassessment does not impact the school. So there was a misconception that and a false narrative that was getting portrayed that the school district wanted to get this in before the reassessment happened, because that means that the school district would get more money when the houses were reassessed, and assessment value versus market value is different. But by law, the school district has to remain revenue neutral. So because the reassessment values are going to go up, which means taxes will go up for people, that does not mean that the school district will get more money. The school district by law has to remain revenue neutral. So yes, taxes will go up because property values will go up, but the school's funding is purely based on that referendum, and which passed on the school tax dollar. Okay. Next slide for me, please. And this just explains kind of the revenue neutral part that I just talked about. But you can go to the next slide for me, please. So what does this referendum support? Next slide. Just after school programming. Next slide for me, please, which includes middle school and elementary sports. If you have not had a chance to go to the elementary basketball championships that they had, they were amazing. Middle school sports is kicking butt. We have, Brandywine's pride. They take a lot of pride in their after-school athletics. You can see the different championships there. Next slide for me, please. But also more than just athletics and sports. We offer a lot of extracurricular activities, including Brandywine Bots and Vex Robots. They just competed in championships. Math leagues. Our math leagues also complete. Our PS DuPont kick butt in theirs. Next slide for me, please. We're also increasing security initiatives. So if you look in 2016, those were some of the safety and security initiatives in our partnerships. And now schools, all middle schools have an SRO. We have a constable program as well. And so, as well as those things on the bottom are all different security. So the district really puts money as well into keeping our staff and our students safe. And that they are on the cutting edge, I would say, in the entire state with regards to safety and security. Okay, next slide for me, please. Again, we have different pathways within high school for kids to do. So there, Council Member Mills and I were talking earlier about college and career, and I would say, I graduated high school in 2004, and then everyone was pushing college, and it was almost like if you didn't go to college, you were a failure. Now the narrative has also changed to college and career ready. And so high schools are now preparing kids for college, but also giving students pathways in case they do want to go into a trade. Okay. Next slide for me, please. More programs. These are our dual enrollment programs and our pathways to careers. You have biomed, first responders, things like that. Next slide for me, please. All right, so let's get into Springer. So next slide for me, please. I would say the biggest thing that we have coming into Springer Middle School and the district itself, but I really pride my dissertation was in Tier 2 and 3 behavioral interventions for students. And our multi-tiered system of support, and this is something that we have grown tremendously on within my first year here. So when you look at a multi-tiered system of support, you're looking at 3 different areas. You're looking at behavior, academics, and attendance. This year we have really focused on behavior. And Tier 1, you do strategies that fit everybody in the school. You try to implement, and we coach our teachers up on things that they can do that will help everybody. That is giving kids PBIS points, like a token economy for kids that are doing good behavior, giving them rewards for catching them to be good, having having an agenda on the board, having kids come in, if kids are talking, have a noisemaker so that kids know when that noisemaker comes off, they be quiet. Those are Tier 1 strategies. They're for everybody. When you start to get into Tier 2, Tier 1 is, you see the 75 to 90% of kids fit into your Tier 1 category, meaning that rarely do they have an office referral. Your Tier 2 is your secondaries, your kids. That makes about 10 to 25% of your school. So that's going to be your kids that start to show us some, if we're focusing on behavior, those are your kids that are getting around 5+ office referrals every marking period. And then your Tier 3 are your kids that really struggle in a comprehensive school. And so what you want to do is you want to target those kids when they're in the Tier 2 category and start implementing interventions to get in place to help those kids. So you start at, through data, you start to realize that these kids are struggling to meet expectations, are struggling academically. A lot of them struggle to get to school, and you want to put certain interventions in place. Okay, if we can go to my next slide, please. And so, really it has to be data driven. And so what we do is we don't want to wait for kids to failure. We want to be able to assess and identify kids early on. And so what we do is when students start to struggle, teachers can put in referrals, administrators can put in referrals to a team. It's our problem-solving team. And the problem-solving team is comprised of school psychologists, it's comprised of my school counselors, administrators, and our school social worker who works full-time. And we come together and say, let's review this kid's data. How are they doing in school from an academic standpoint? How are they doing from behavior? Where do they struggle? Are there things, my school nurse is part of that team, are there health concerns? With my social worker being there, she can really highlight, is there food insecurity in the house? Are there needs that student maybe not have that's causing this? And then what can we do to intervene? Sometimes that looks like getting them services, like we have a bagged food service where on Fridays we give kids bagged food before they leave. Sometimes it's, and when you get into the PDF version that I have that's later in here, you'll see that we have groups that we run. And we're really proud of that. So if you go to the next slide, please.
Dr. Stephen, if I could.
Yes, absolutely.
Quick question. The multi-tiered system, this is just for Springer?
No, so this is something that is across district-wide
Okay.
In Brandywine, but we at Springer feel that we are the best at it.
I would agree. I
Yeah.
wasn't.
So yeah, we feel strong that we've really established a system that runs well and identifies kids early on.
I would definitely agree. I mean, and no knock to last year and
Oh, yeah.
administration, but there is a change in your building. There's a change in the children, a change in the staff, and whatever you're
appreciate
doing, it's working, and the district needs to model it. That school needs to be a model for the state. I mean, it's night and day. And like again,
you.
no knock to last year. What was
No,
going
yeah.
on? It was a good school, but now it's a great school. It's one of the best schools. I do school visits all
Yeah.
day, and it's one of the best schools I go in, hands down.
Thank you.
Period.
I really appreciate that,
Yeah.
and that is something that means a lot because I know
Yeah.
you're well vested in the community, and you know the kids, and you know the teachers, and it's a team effort. It's not solely by me. I have an amazing team that works there. All of them that work their butts. My student dean, Ms. Coons, is also phenomenal. So. Thank you for that. And really, like, what you want to do is you want to be able to intervene early on.
Yeah, if I could.
Yep.
President Congo, I just wanted to acknowledge that President Congo has joined as well. Thank you.
Oh, great. All right, if you go to my next slide, please. You go to the next slide for me, please, on that. Gotcha. So here's kind of how Tier 2 works. So, here this kind of just is a quick visualization that the student presents behaviors or needs that they begin to show at they need a higher level of support. And so there you'll see behavior, attendance, and grades are 3 of the things we look at. If the student starts to present an area of need in behavior, academics, or attendance, a referral is put in. And with that referral, you will see that there's a teacher referral, a school counselor referral, a school nurse referral, and a parent referral. So you have 4 pieces of data and questions that are getting answered to really identify the kid. So we send the forms home. We require that parents fill them out. So parents are part of the process. As I've taken on, in a lot of schools, what happens is often parents are left out of the equation, and we do a lot of things with or to kids without involving the parents. So this is something that we really want to make sure, like, parents know what is going on. Hey, your kid is presenting with X need. Please fill out this form so you can help us out. So they are really brought into the process as well. Once the referral comes in, that referral gets bumped over to the problem-solving team. We meet every Friday, and we meet to review data to see if the student's applicable for an intervention and determine what level of need. So those are just some of the needs that we have there. So we have check-in, check-out, which is a mentoring program. Kids have point cards. They take them from teacher to teacher. We track their points. If they do really well, we reward them. With that mentor, they check in the morning every day. They check out every day. How was your day? When they check in the morning, give them a little rah-rah, give them a little love. And then at the end of the day, how'd your day go? What happened? I see in second period, you really struggled to complete your work. What was going on? So when we tie those to our BARC principles, we also have, in that PDF that was printed out, we have a variety of groups that we give to kids that is run by our school social worker, run by our school counselor. Do you have those? I can grab them for you.
Okay, we have them, sir. Yeah.
Great. And so, I run I haven't started the group yet, but I have a group that's coming with me, that's starting with me. And we meet with those kids. We go over 6 weeks of these programs. They are guided by a curriculum, each and every one of them that is research-based, so it's not just meeting with someone and winging it. It is very prescribed, and then we check the data after 6 weeks to see if it was beneficial. Okay? Can you go to the next slide for me, please? So this is kind of what the asset map looks like and was printed out, so you can kind of just see there, it's intervention, who's running it, how many kids can be in it, how long is that going to go, what group are we targeting, what is our intended outcome, we want to, some of the data we want to look at, and what is the curriculum we use. So it is extremely intentional what we do. It is data driven, and it is driven by both data as well as needs, so we can support kids, because what we don't want to do is kids then get into the tier 3 group where it's like you are really struggling and there might be a more restrictive environment that you need. We really want to keep as many kids as we can in Springer and give them the level of need, because I will say often our marginalized youth are the ones that don't get the certain level of support. And when I say, I mean that across education as a whole, not Brandywine School District, but we really want to make sure that our kids have what they need, both from a physical standpoint with regards to food, clothing, water, supports at home, but also from a social, emotional, and academic standpoint. So we want to close some of those gaps that we see. Next slide for me, please. So how can you guys help? That was one thing that Mr. Mills wanted to know. I would say that really groups collaborate. We want to communicate in many ways that if you would like to run a group, or if you see benefit in that, we would love to have you on there, and we would love to have you meet with some of our kids. We're always looking for people to help out. I know Pastor Pope comes in and meets with kids in our school, and we want to be able to collaborate and communicate with you guys and with your committee. Additionally, if you have resources, or if there are things that as a committee are coming up, like I know today you were talking about a food and nutrition program, if there are things that this committee decides or initiatives that can help our students that are at Springer, we would love to know that, so then I can communicate that to my group. I do a weekly newsletter and blast it out to every parent, and so that's just a good way for the work that you guys do in bringing resources to the community. If there's things that can affect those students at Springer, I would love to be able to advocate, to be able to put that in my newsletter so that our parents who are getting it can say, my kid can benefit from that, right? Because getting the word out is so important. And then the last thing really would just be to advocate. So just continue to advocate. Mr. Mills, you were phenomenal at doing that, and just advocating for Springer and for Brandywine Public Schools is just, the Brandywine School District. It's super important. There is a lot of mistrust nowadays with regards to education, and really we are just a very dedicated, hardworking group of people across the entire district that really just want to help kids. And so advocating for parents to work with us and for kids to come to school is super important. So next slide for me, please. So do you guys have any questions? I know I threw a lot at you, but I'd be more than happy to answer any of your questions.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, Councilman White.
I see the assessments, I see the tier progression, but how would a situation whereas the provider is the problem and not the child? I don't see any assessment for that interaction.
The provider being the school or the provider being?
Provider being the school and or the instructor or teacher.
Well, I would say that if a parent ever had a problem or an issue or.
I'm talking about the child.
Well, I would say I'm having just a little trouble understanding your question. So if the provider was the problem, like the teacher,
Yes.
was a problem with the student, like if that didn't mix.
Yes.
So we implement restorative practices. It's something that, I've led that initiative at Elkton Middle, Rising Sun High, Perryville Middle, and Elkton High, and I've run it here. And that what we want to be able to do, I often talk about the village in a lot of my letters home to parents, when I speak to parents in public settings. And so that village, we all are part of that, right? And it takes a village to raise these kids. And so if there is a disconnect or if that relationship is fractured between a teacher and a student or a teacher and a family, we first try to restore. So bringing those in and having honest conversations. One thing that we do, for example.
I can appreciate that. I just don't see that in what you give.
Yeah, so restorative practices would be like a tier 1 strategy. We do that with across the board. I don't know if it's made its way into the asset map, but I would say that restorative practices is something that we run because we want our students.
But since you brought it up, where would it be? Why wouldn't it be in the asset map?
So why it wouldn't be in the asset map as a tier 1 strategy? I mean, I would say that it just hasn't made it in there. There's a lot of things that we do, and we try to encompass as much as we can. I don't have an answer as to why it's not in our asset map, but we absolutely utilize that.
Thank you.
Okay? Good question.
Are there any other questions from council? All right. Seeing none, I just want to thank you for your time, Doctor. Appreciate you coming in.
Absolutely.
Welfare information, very positive. And I want to also make sure, it was great information for the parents to hear about the referendum and also the things that are going on in your school. Excellent. And I'll make sure to get you that information in reference to the summer jobs as well. I know
Thank you.
your kids
I
can use
appreciate
that for the
that.
Wilmington
Awesome.
residents as well.
Madam, Mr. Chair, could I just follow up real quick before
Yes,
we
sir.
adjourn? I'd like to give the district kudos on the chess program. I've not seen a program that involves so many parents as well as young thinkers. And of course, that aligns to their critical thinking skills. But I've been participating in that and very supportive of that. So I want to give kudos to the district for that.
Well, we'd love to have you at Springer Middle School if you want to run a chess club. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, sir. All right. And that concludes our meeting. So let me just make a few announcements. We have the mayor's budget address is going to be 3/21/24. The next city council meeting is 4/4/24. And next Education, Youth, and Families Committee meeting is May the 8th, 24.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah, yes, Councilwoman.
I think Council President wants to be acknowledged.
I acknowledged them. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that.
Oh, yeah, no worries.
I just saw it.
Yeah. All right. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion, Mr. Chair.
Second.
It has been properly moved and second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you.